Her name was Amara Johnson, 16 years old, tall and graceful, with deep brown eyes that held more wisdom than her age should have allowed. Her skin was the color of polished mahogany, her curls always tightly tied in a bun, and her posture spoke of quiet dignity. She didn't speak much unless she had something meaningful to say. She wasn't loud, wasn't flashy, but when she moved, people watched. There was something magnetic about her presence, even if she didn't see it herself. Amara had just transferred to Westbridge High, a wealthy, predominantly white school in a quiet, suburban district. The halls were brighter, the lockers shinier, and the stairs sharper. She came from a small inner-city school where everyone looked like her, spoke like her, and understood the silent strength she carried. Here, she felt like an outsider, and she hated that. Her parents, Deshawn and Lydia, were working-class people who had done everything they could to give Amara a better life. Deshawn worked 2 shifts at the shipping yard, while Lydia cleaned houses and took care of her elderly mother in the evenings. They didn't have much, but they had each other. They taught Amara that being strong doesn't mean being loud. It means standing tall when the world tries to push you down. Their faith, their values, and their love were her anchor. The transfer to Westbridge happened after her father was promoted and they were able to move into a better district. They were proud, especially her mother. But Amara felt torn. She missed her old friends, her old routines, her comfort zone, and now she had to start over. The first day at Westbridge was like walking into another planet. Blonde ponytails, expensive sneakers, laughter that seemed too perfect, eyes that scanned her like she didn't belong. What if they don't like me? What if I mess up? What if I'm not enough? The anxiety wrapped around her chest like a tight cord. But Amara smiled politely, answered questions softly, and kept her head down. Then she saw the flyer. Cheerleading tryouts this Friday. No experience necessary. All grades welcome. Amara had been a cheerleader at her old school. A good one. Tumbling, flips, stunts. She could do it all. But would it matter here? The gym was packed. Girls lined up in perfect formation, each one dressed in matching gear, makeup done, hair curled. Amara showed up in leggings and a plain black tee. Heads turned. Whispers started. Who's that? She doesn't even look like she belongs here. And then came Brittany Caldwell, senior, cheer captain, and the school's golden girl. Platinum blonde hair, ice blue eyes, a diamond necklace with a B. Her family was rich, her boyfriend was the quarterback, and she was used to being number one, always. She strutted across the gym like she owned it. When she saw Amara, she raised an eyebrow, half curious, half dismissive. Tryouts began. The other girls performed with energy and precision, but nothing surprising. Then came Amara. As soon as she stepped onto the floor, the room changed. Her flips were sharp, her landings perfect. She moved like she was floating, each motion full of control and strength. When she finished with a perfect back handspring and landed in a clean cheer stance, the gym went silent. Then applause broke out. From the coach, from the other teachers watching, even from a few stunned girls. Coach Ramirez, a tough woman with years of experience, clapped her hands and said the words no one expected. Amara Johnson is our new lead flyer. Congratulations, the room froze. All eyes turned to Brittany. Brittany smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her hands clapped once, twice. Slow. Congrats, she said through gritted teeth. Inside, she was boiling. How dare she? Some new girl. Over me? This was her squad, her school, and she wasn't going to give up her crown without a fight. Brittany Caldwell had never felt rage like this before. She sat in her perfectly decorated bedroom, staring at herself in the mirror. Her flawless hair, her designer clothes, her carefully curated life. None of it mattered in that moment. She had been replaced, overlooked, dethroned. And by who? A transfer student. A girl who didn't wear makeup, didn't have name-brand clothes, didn't even speak much. Brittany's jaw clenched just thinking about it. Her entire identity was built on being the best, the prettiest, the one everyone looked up to or feared. Now all the whispers in the hallway were about Amara. Did you see that flip? She's actually better than Brittany. She's so graceful, like a real gymnast. It burned Brittany from the inside out. Jealousy turns to action. By lunchtime the next day, Brittany had already made a plan. She slid next to her boyfriend Chase, the school's football captain, flashing him a sugar-sweet smile. Ba-abi, she purred, wrapping an arm around him. We have a tiny situation. That new girl, Amara, she's getting a little too comfortable. Chase raised an eyebrow. What do you want me to do about it? It's cheerleading. Brittany leaned in closer, her voice a whisper. Just make her want to leave. A few harmless jokes. Remind her of her place. You and the guys can handle that, right? Chase shrugged. He didn't care either way. But for Brittany, he'd play along. The jokes begin. It started small. Someone moved Amara's shoes during gym class, so she had to walk across campus in socks. A mysterious drink spill ruined her only clean cheer shirt the day before practice. Sticky notes with newbie and wannabe appeared on her locker. Rumors started. She flirted with the coach. She's faking being nice. Amara tried to ignore it. She had heard worse. But Westbridge was different. These students were sneaky, polished. Their cruelty wore a smile. At practice, Brittany took it further. Amara, maybe stick to the basics. Not everyone can flip their way into the spotlight. She said it with a laugh, loud enough for everyone to hear. Others chuckled nervously, not wanting to be next in line for Brittany's wrath. Amara felt the shift in the air. No one talked to her at lunch. People avoided eye contact. The girls she practiced with whispered behind her back. The football guys smirked when she passed. Even teachers seemed distant. She walked the halls with her head high, but inside she was sinking. She never told her parents. They worked too hard. She didn't go to the school counselor. What could she say? I'm being frozen out because I'm too good? Most days she sat alone, her tray untouched, her spirit bruised. But she didn't cry. Instead, after school, she stayed longer in the gym. She practiced until her legs ached, until her hands shook. She tumbled with fury, danced with defiance. At one practice, Brittany accidentally dropped her during a stunt. Amara landed hard. The other girls gasped, but Brittany just laughed. Oops. Maybe next time don't show off so much. Amara stood up, bruised but steady. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She just walked to the edge of the mat, stretched, and kept going. And that made Brittany hate her even more. Because no matter what she threw at her, Amara wouldn't break. Amara had always believed that if she worked hard, she'd earn respect. But Westbridge High was proving otherwise. It wasn't enough to be talented here, especially not when someone like Brittany Caldwell felt threatened. Incident 1. The uniform. The day before the big scrimmage performance, Amara stayed late after school to practice a few routines. She left her cheer uniform hanging neatly in her assigned locker in the gym changing room, pressed, ready, and spotless. But the next morning, it was gone. She opened the locker and froze. Empty hanger, no uniform, no backup. She checked every locker, the bathroom, the laundry room. Nothing. Panic rose in her throat, but there was no time to search further. She was already running late. She showed up to the field wearing old gym clothes, a faded school t-shirt, worn-out sneakers, and shorts a size too big. She knew she looked out of place. The other girls were already in matching cheer sets, with bows in their hair and glitter on their cheeks. The moment she stepped onto the field, the whispers began. Seriously? That's what she's wearing? Maybe this style is what she's used to. Looks like someone couldn't afford laundry day. Brittany didn't say anything. She just smiled from the center of the formation, tossing Amara a glance that said, checkmate. Coach Simmons raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Amara performed anyway, flawlessly, but her confidence had taken a hit. That night, she cried into her pillow, not because they laughed, but because she let them see it get to her. Incident 2. The closet. A week later, the team had an important evening practice. Everyone was expected to be there, especially Amara. Coach was planning to finalize the competition routine and needed her stunts. Amara arrived early as usual. She went to the supply room behind the gym to grab a fresh roll of athletic tape for her ankle. The light flickered dimly as she stepped in. Then, click. The door slammed behind her, locked. At first, she thought it was just a gust of wind. But when she turned the knob, nothing happened. No matter how hard she banged or called out, no one answered. Her phone, left in her backpack on the bleachers. She sat there for almost an hour in near darkness, surrounded by mop buckets and bleach, trying not to panic. The air felt thick and cold. Her hands trembled, not from fear of the dark, but from knowing what this would look like. When she was finally found by the janitor, practice was already over. Coach was packing up cones and megaphones. "Where were you?" he asked, visibly annoyed. Amara tried to explain, but Brittany cut in, wrapping her arm around one of the other cheerleaders, pretending to be concerned. Maybe she forgot, or just didn't feel like coming. Another girl giggled behind her hand. Amara opened her mouth but stopped herself. What could she say that didn't sound like a bad excuse? Coach sighed. "We'll talk tomorrow. I don't have time for this right now." As Amara walked away, she turned just in time to see Brittany smiling to herself. Cracks appear. Brittany's plan was working. The squad began to doubt Amara's reliability. Whispers of favoritism returned. "She's good, but she's unpredictable," they said. Even Coach, who had once praised Amara's talent, now gave her second looks. But Amara didn't give up. She showed up early the next day. She practiced twice as hard, and she kept her head high, no matter how much it hurt. What they didn't know was that Amara had started writing everything down. Every incident, every name, every time. She was quiet, but she was watching. And when the moment was right, she would speak. Amara said nothing. Not to the coach, not to her parents, not to the principal, not even to the janitor who found her locked in the closet. She simply gathered her things, whispered a quiet, "Thank you," and walked home in silence, her backpack digging into her shoulders, her chest hollow with hurt. When she got home, she went straight to her room, closed the door, and slid to the floor. The house was quiet. Her parents were working late again. There was no one to ask her what was wrong, and even if they had, she wouldn't have known where to start. She buried her face in a pillow and cried, quietly, as if even her pain didn't deserve to be heard. Why didn't she say anything? Because she was tired of being the new girl with complaints. Because she knew how the world worked. A black girl standing up for herself was always too emotional, too dramatic, or too much. Because she didn't want to give Brittany the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart. Most of all, because some tiny voice inside her still believed she could make it through. But it was getting quieter every day. At school, Amara smiled just enough to keep teachers from asking questions. At practice, she stayed focused, even when whispers followed her like shadows. But inside, she was unraveling. What did I do to deserve this? Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here. She thought about quitting, almost every day. The idea haunted her like a way out, like a life raft in a storm. But every time she stood on that mat, every time the music started, every time her feet left the ground and she flew into the air, she remembered why she was there. It wasn't for them. It was for the version of herself that believed in something bigger. It was for the girl who stayed up late practicing in her room before tryouts. It was for the younger her, the one who once watched cheerleaders on TV and dreamed of being one someday. She started waking up before dawn to stretch and condition in her room. She stayed after practice to perfect her tumbles, even when no one watched. She prayed every night, whispering to the ceiling, to whatever was listening. Give me strength. Give me peace. Just don't let them break me. There were moments when the loneliness was suffocating, when the silence in her life felt louder than anything anyone had ever said to her. But then there were flashes of strength. A stunt landed perfectly. A teacher praised her essay in English class. A small kid in the hallway told her, "I like your hair." Tiny sparks, but enough to keep the fire alive. Amara looked at herself in the mirror one night, eyes swollen from crying, and whispered, "They will not break me." She didn't know how things would change. She didn't know when they would. But she made a promise right there through clenched teeth and burning eyes. "I'm not going anywhere. I belong here." The day had finally come. The day Amara had been waiting for. The day she had cried over, trained for, prayed about. The gym buzzed with energy. Students packed the bleachers, banners waved in the air, and music thumped through the speakers. This wasn't just a school pep rally. This was a moment for the squad, for the team, but especially for Amara. She stood in the locker room, adjusting her uniform. This time it hadn't gone missing. She had triple-checked. Her hair was tied back neatly, her sneakers spotless. Her heart beat fast, but her hands were steady. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel small. She felt ready. The music started. The crowd roared. The cheerleaders ran out, forming their starting formation. Amara was front and center. And then, she flew. Every tumble was sharp. Every stunt hit perfectly. She flipped through the air like she was made for it. Every move was powerful, graceful, magnetic. The gym was silent with awe, then exploded with cheers. Even the football players, who once laughed at her, were now on their feet, clapping, whistling, stunned. Gasps, cheers, applause that shook the walls. Students who never said a word to her were now chanting her name. Amara! Amara! Phones were out. People were filming. Whispers spread like wildfire. Did you see that flip? She's better than Brittany ever was. She's incredible. Coach Daniels stood with her hands over her mouth, eyes wide in disbelief and pride. She turned to her assistant and whispered, "That girl is a star." It wasn't just talent. It was heart, grit, and grace under fire. Amara hadn't just performed. She had claimed her place. Brittany watched from the sidelines, lips pressed into a tight line, face pale. She didn't clap. She didn't cheer. Her world, where she was always the queen, had cracked. She glanced at her boyfriend, expecting him to scoff or roll his eyes. But he was clapping. Hard, Jake, the football captain, stood with his teammates, staring at the mat like he'd just seen lightning strike. "Yo, she's crazy good," he muttered to no one in particular. He looked almost guilty, but mostly stunned. He'd underestimated her. As the music faded and the crowd roared, Amara stood in the center of the mat, breathing heavily, cheeks flushed. She looked around, at the screaming students, at the smiling coach, at Brittany's stunned silence, and felt a rush of something warm and strong rise in her chest. She had done it. She had survived. She had won. But not against Brittany, not against the team. She had won against doubt, against fear, against the voice that told her to give up. The next morning, Amara walked into school not as the quiet new girl, but as the girl who made the entire gym rise to its feet. Whispers followed her through the hallway, but this time, they weren't laced with cruelty. They were filled with awe, respect, and something new. Curiosity. People started seeing her, really seeing her, and Amara was done hiding. Later that week, the principal invited her to speak at a school assembly. "Talk about leadership, about perseverance," they said. She agreed, but in her heart she knew it was time to tell the truth. She stood on stage holding the microphone. Her voice was calm, but every word carried weight. "When I came here, I was the outsider, and I knew fitting in wouldn't be easy. What I didn't expect was to be made to feel small, repeatedly. My uniform went missing. I was locked in a closet. I was laughed at, humiliated. I never said anything, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was afraid no one would care. I thought if I stayed quiet and worked harder, it would stop. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't protect you. It only protects the ones who hurt you. I don't say this for revenge. I say this because no one else should feel alone like I did." The auditorium was silent, dead silent. And though she never said their names, not Brittany's, not Jake's, everyone knew. The reaction was immediate. Students began murmuring. Some gasped. Others stared directly at Brittany and Jake. Brittany's face turned red. Her perfect image, the crown she wore so confidently, shattered under the weight of the truth. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat, jaw tight. His friends avoided his eyes. That same afternoon, the school board stripped him of his captain title. Brittany was suspended from the squad for bullying and unsportsmanlike behavior. Their parents were called in to meet with school officials. The empire they had built on intimidation and popularity, crumbling. After the assembly, Amara walked alone through the halls. No music played, no applause, just the sound of her own breath and heartbeat. She felt light, not triumphant, not cruel, but free. She hadn't exposed them for revenge. She hadn't screamed or accused. She had simply told the truth, and the truth had done the rest. Brittany sat on the bleachers later that day alone. For once, no one wanted a selfie. No one asked what she was wearing. She stared ahead blankly, trying to make sense of it all. For the first time, she wasn't on top. And deep down, she knew Amara hadn't ruined her reputation. She had ruined it herself. Jake tried to laugh it off with the team, but the silence was loud. They didn't see a leader anymore. They saw a coward who stood by while someone was hurt, and sometimes even helped. He had lost his title, his respect, and worst of all, his own sense of who he thought he was.